Using pre-qualified welding procedure specifications can save fabricators a lot of time and money, not to mention help them land contracts they otherwise couldn't. How can pre-qualified welding procedures do this? First, pre-qualified welding procedures are exempt from testing to achieve qualified status and are fully permitted by AWS D1.1, the structural welding code for steel. Bypassing testing requirements can save upwards of $2,500. Also, it can speed up time to production because testing can take as long as 3 to 4 weeks, and writing their own pre-qualified welding procedures can take as little as a couple of hours. But here's the thing. Very few companies take advantage of them. Why? Because they either don't know about them or they're simply not familiar with the requirements of the code. Some fabricators even decline jobs requiring welding procedures because they incorrectly assume it adds a lot of cost and complexity to the job. The good news is you're here. That means you do know about pre-qualified welding procedures and understand their advantages. Although pre-qualified welding procedures can be purchased, it is extremely useful to learn how to write your own. There is a misconception that only welding engineers or certified welding inspectors should write procedures. The reality is that AWS D1.1 allows anyone to write pre-qualified welding procedures so long as they follow all of the requirements specified in the pre-qualification clause. Over the next few minutes, you'll learn exactly how to write pre-qualified welding procedures, step by step, so they comply with the structural welding code. So grab your copy of AWS D1.1 and follow along. This tutorial is broken into 4 key lessons. Lesson 1. Selecting pre-qualified base metals and pre-qualified weld joints. Lesson 2. Selecting pre-qualified welding processes, filler metals, and shielding gases. Lesson 3. Determining preheat, interpass temperature, and post-weld heat treatment. Lesson 4. Writing your first pre-qualified WPS. Let's get started. Lesson 1. Selecting pre-qualified base metals and weld joints. Writing pre-qualified WPSs is simple if you follow the instructions and meet all the requirements in the pre-qualification clause of AWS D1.1. The first step is to choose a pre-qualified base metal and a pre-qualified weld joint. Pre-qualified welding procedure specifications can only be used with approved base metals. You'll find the full list of approved base metals in Table 5.3 of AWS D1.1. If the base metal you are using is not listed in this table, it is not permitted for use in pre-qualified welding procedures. In this case, you'll have to qualify it through testing, following the requirements of the qualification clause of AWS D1.1. Some of the most commonly used approved base metals include ASTM-A36, A572, and A588. After you have chosen your base metal, it's time to select a pre-qualified weld joint. These joints are illustrated in figures 5.1 through 5.5 of AWS D1.1. These figures provide all of the necessary joint details, including dimensions, tolerances, as well as additional requirements and limitations. And don't just focus on the diagrams and tolerance charts. Always pay attention to the footnotes, which contain important additional requirements. To illustrate the importance of the footnotes, let's look at a common joint used in pre-qualified welding procedures: the single V-groove weld butt joint. For this joint, and when using the gas metal arc welding process, the footnotes specify that the joint must be welded from one side only. Also, that the minimum weld size and groove depth must match Table 5.5 and the design drawings. Additionally, member orientation must be between 135 to 180 degrees for butt joints, 45 to 135 degrees for corner joints, and 45 to 90 degrees for T-joints. As you can see, the footnotes provide a lot of information that must be followed to comply with pre-qualification requirements. That's it for Lesson 1. You've now selected your base metal and weld joint. Lesson 2. Selecting pre-qualified welding processes, filler metals, and shielding gases. AWS D1.1 allows only certain welding processes for use with pre-qualified welding procedures such as shielded metal arc welding, submerged arc welding, gas metal arc welding, and flux cord arc welding. There are other processes that are not pre-qualified but which can be used and qualified by testing. These processes include gas tungsten arc welding, electroslag welding, and electrogas welding. Once you've chosen a process, it's time to select your filler metal and shielding gas. Refer to Table 5.4 for matching strength filler metals for base metals in groups 1 through 4. Processes that use shielding gas, like gas metal arc welding and flux cord arc welding, must use gases listed in Table 5.7. Approved options include argon and carbon dioxide mixtures containing 75 to 90% argon, argon and oxygen mixtures containing 95 to 98% argon, and 100% carbon dioxide. Alternatively, you can use any shielding gas listed in the manufacturer's Filler Metal Certificate of Conformance, as long as it meets AWS 5 classification requirements. If you're using the submerged arc welding process, you'll need both a filler metal and an approved flux. This wraps up Lesson 2. We have selected our filler metal and shielding gas. Lesson 3. Determining preheat, interpass, and post-weld heat treatment. Preheat and interpass temperatures are critical to preventing cracking and embrittlement. Table 5.8 of AWS D1.1 outlines the minimum preheat and interpass temperatures, which depend on both the base metal type and thickness. For example, ASTM-A36 has different temperature requirements based on thickness ranges. Once you have identified the necessary preheat and interpass temperature, you must consider post-weld heat treatment, which is typically used to improve mechanical properties and reduce residual stress. There are two common methods of post-weld heat treatment: post-heating, which helps avoid hydrogen-induced cracking, and stress relieving, which reduces internal stress and extends fatigue life. Post-weld heat treatment must meet Section 7.8 of AWS D1.1 and be approved by the engineer in charge. Post-weld heat treatment is only pre-qualified if all of the following are true. Yield strength is 50 ksi or less. Base metal is not quenched and tempered. No notch toughness is required, and the weld exhibits adequate strength and ductility after post-weld heat treatment. This completes Lesson 3, and we are now ready to write your pre-qualified welding procedure. Lesson 4. Writing your first pre-qualified welding procedure. The first step in writing your first pre-qualified welding procedure is to look at Table 5.1, which provides all mandatory pre-qualified welding procedure requirements. Some of the requirements that you must adhere to are maximum electrode diameter, maximum current, maximum root and fill pass thickness, maximum weld size, and maximum layer width. And yes, pay close attention to those footnotes at the bottom of this table also. For example, Table 5.1 states that welding current must fall within the range recommended by the filler metal manufacturer. Finally, you will select your welding parameters based on everything you've learned and the constraints laid out in the code. Pre-qualified welding procedures require that you follow the values specified by the manufacturer of the filler metal you intend to use. By following these steps and using AWS D1.1 as your guide, you can confidently write your own pre-qualified welding procedure. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you want a PDF copy of this tutorial, simply the link on the video description to download your free copy.